how well prepared everything is. Massive fuel nozzle here to put 80 liters in literally a matter of seconds into the diesel car. And the reason I really wanted to show you is because while the action goes on track, it's all about preparation out here. And over there are the pit boxes for, well, they call them the stands here, where obviously all the engineers, all the telemetry, all the real-time stuff happens. But there's probably 4 times more equipment than that back behind, and certainly with Peugeot, we can never go near it. Perhaps the most coveted sign that we're at Le Mans is on this Rolex clock over here, and you can see it counting away. 23 hours, 26 minutes and 20 seconds left, and that, my friends, is really what this race is all about. There's an awful long way to go, and that's why probably no one wants to get out of sync, Brian, because if they get out of sync now, it really does throw, you know, maybe another 28 pit stops out of sync. So Chris has got a bit more.
Well, Justin, just circling back down to that story on the Ricci Ferrari, this is one of the spare rear decks for that Ferrari 430, and this is the rear wing on the car. And as we talked about, this is that gurney. It needs a minimum height of 15 millimeters. And when this was measured at Tech, it was a little bit too short. And if you look on here, there's actually a part number. So this is a part that comes from Ferrari. So obviously, they got the height wrong. That's one of the reasons that the car went to the back of the pack. But the scrutineers here also said that because every other bolt was not bolted in, that was another reason that the car went to the back. They felt that since in qualifying with not all of these bolts in, that there's possibility that that gurney could lay back a little bit on these long straightaways. So really 2 reasons. One being the height. Number 2, every other bolt was not in its place.
Chris, you know what that part number means, don't you? It costs a lot of money.
All right, we see the field behind the pace cars right now, and we talked about 3 different pace cars. As we look at the timing and scoring screen, we see an effect that these 3 pace cars have had already, Calvin.
Oh, this is huge. Right now, we're looking at timing and scoring, folks, and the Audis just got split from the lead 4 Peugeots. They are now 3 minutes behind. How did that happen? Well, we talked about 3 different pace cars. Imagine the racetrack as a clock, and at noon, at high noon, is where the pit entrance is. There's another pace car at 4 o'clock, another pace car at 8 o'clock around the circle of the racetrack. What happened was the Peugeots got grabbed by 1 pace car, and then they got split from the Audis. So right now the Audis are a complete 1/3 of a lap behind those lead Peugeots. That's 3 minutes. Okay, and we're only 7 laps into this race. This is a huge, huge moment in the very beginning of this race. Unbelievable stuff. I'm sure the Audi crew are really frustrated right now.
And we talked about it amongst ourselves since it's the first time that we've had this 3 pace car situation, the ramifications of what if, what could possibly happen. Well, in 7 laps to be 3 minutes down, that is staggering.
Staggering indeed. Right now you look at the Peugeots as they circulate around. Olivier Canel, Peugeot looking on, riding on board the number 7 right now. Remember, that is Alan McNish leading the charge for Audi here, one of the more experienced drivers with Audi, and we certainly have seen the fire in his eyes as you see the rest of the Audis split by as well.
Of course, when we go back to green flag running, that number will be reduced. It's 3 minutes right now running at these speeds. So obviously, when we get up to racing speeds, it will still equate to about 1 minute and 10 seconds, 3:30s for the lap.
And you see all the work going on the racetrack right now, a very good indication of just how big the impact Nigel Mansell had, repairing the guardrail on both the right and the left side. So I believe you're right, Calvin. The left side rear probably was cut down, shot Mansell off to the right, and that's where the contact happened. We talked about problems early on for several of the cars. Well, unfortunately, our American Le Mans Series competitor, Paul Gentilozzi, and his Jaguar team having problems early on as well in the garage right now. And that is not where they need to be. You see the crew paying attention to the power plant up front. They really felt like they were getting a handle on the engine on this Jag, but right now, problems have arisen very early here at Le Mans.
Yeah, they had clutch problems immediately when Paul Gentilozzi went to pull the car out for the opening practice session on Wednesday afternoon, and it's been a tough road for that team here, but they'll rebound. They'll learn a lot here from their first entry at Le Mans, and they'll come back next year even stronger, I'm sure.
Le Mans is a celebration of man, machine, technology, desire, drive, and emotion. It doesn't all happen on the racetrack as well. The fans, well, they get plenty of it, and the celebrations, they are everywhere throughout the week. Scenery in France, yeah, it's beautiful this time of year. We'll be right back. Back at the circuit Les Sarthe, you see the medical crew bringing Nigel Mansell back in after his shunt, and Dr. Wolfgang Ullrich standing by. We talked about the three pace cars, how they've been split from the Peugeots. Chris, how are they going to recover from this?
Well, Dr. Ullrich is in charge of Audi Sport, and Dr. Ullrich, we're in the first hour of this race. Your cars have been split from the Peugeots up in another segment of pace cars. Is that very detrimental in the first hour?
No, it's not nice for sure. This is really bad luck because this costs at least 1 minute. And with the time difference between the Peugeots and us per lap, you can imagine how many hours it would have taken to make up 1 minute. So this is just bad luck, but it's a...
What the hell?
Well, he's led this team to so many wins. Hopefully they can strategize their way through this one.
Still a long way to go, obviously. 23 hours and 17 minutes to be exact. So a little hiccup early on. A little bit of a technical problem there. We apologize for the technical problems with our pictures. Obviously a long way to go to bring you the sights and sounds of Le Mans, the 78th running of it. We also talked about problems for the Jaguar and Paul Gentilozzi. Justin Bell, what do you know?
Well, what I know is that Paul has certainly had the Le Mans Trials and Tribune this week. Paul, you haven't even made a full lap under full power, have you, all week?
You know, Justin, since we got here, the car has been wonderful in its handling, but we've been fighting an electronic gremlin that we can't find. What happens? The crank trigger that fires the ignition runs along about 8 volts. Suddenly we get a 100-volt spike, and it defaults the system. We've had every expert available come by and talk to us, make improvements in the system. Sometimes it lasts 3/4 of a lap. When you don't go hard, it lasts the whole lap. But Mark did really 1.5 laps, and it defaulted again and caused the ECU to fail this time.
Well, let's talk about more exciting stuff. Unfortunately, Le Mans really it's hammered you this year, but believe me,